Hello there, I'm Jimmy Vegas, and guess what? The PSVR 2 wasn't a failure. Okay, look, it wasn't a success either, let's be honest. But let's look at the VR 1, the first headset from Sony. Well, I think that was a success. You have to look at it and think, okay, yeah, people bought it, people bought the games, and you can still get it today, and I guess it still kind of does sell, but probably not as well as some of the other VR headsets out there. Probably maybe more than the Apple one, because the Apple one, although was really cool, I don't know how well that actually sold. Now it's safe to say that other VR headsets sell better than the Apple one. Anyway, we're on about PSVR 2 here. Now, in and of itself, it wasn't a failure. What I think is happening in this generation now is that VR has become a fad. Much like 3D. You remember 3D TVs, don't you? They still exist. Curved TVs, yeah, they still exist. Curved monitors, they still exist. 3D was a fad. It's always going to be just a fad. Same with VR. VR seems to be a bit of a longer fad because VR in itself is good. It can do amazing things. But if you've ever played VR at all, you'll know it's kind of cool the first time, but that novelty wears off. And that's the problem. Even with VR 2, the novelty wears off. And let's face it, the price of PSVR 2, very expensive. But Sony seem to be in that trend where they're charging an extortionate amount of money for these things. Look at the PS5 Pro, for example. Look how expensive that was. Let's be honest, the PS5 in and of itself is more expensive than it was 4 years ago. How ridiculous is that? Things should be coming down in price over time, not going up. Every previous console generation history has always come down in price. This one hasn't. And I think PlayStation maybe released VR 2 a bit too soon after the original VR, which is why it probably didn't sell quite as well. Now, there are plenty of games available for VR. I'm not talking about VR 2 at this point, the original VR, and it does indeed work on the PS5. So why bother getting a VR 2 when there's a much more of a selection on the original VR? Yes, the games look better on VR 2, but a lot of people don't really care. These sort of items are for hardcore collectors, people who want to have it for the sake of having it and probably don't play that many games, which is why you'll probably find VR games and VR2 games dirt cheap these days. Now, to say that the PSVR 2 wasn't a failure, I think it's fair to say, but it's also fair to say, like I said at the beginning of this video, that it wasn't a success either. And that can all be attributed to being a fad, like I say. What is a fad? Well, it's something that comes and goes. You look at things like yo-yos in the schoolyard or something, they come and go. Pokemon, that comes and goes. Yeah, okay, look, Pokemon's a bad example, but when I was a kid, it came and went, came and went, came and went. It's huge now, like mega huge. But fads in schools come and go. It's a cycle. VR will be back round again in probably 10, 15 years' time, and it'll look even better than it does today. But once again, it is only a fad. So the VR2 itself isn't the failure. VR itself is the failure because that is just a fad. And I know this is only a quick little video, but it's not meant to be any kind of clickbait or anything. I wasn't meant to try and trigger anybody, who thinks that VR2 was a failure or anything like that. Because the idea of this video was just to kind of bring to your mind fads come and go in the video game industry. Probably a lot more than any other industry, if I'm honest. Just look around you at the consoles, at PCs, what people are playing, what people are buying, what they're not buying. Fads are huge in the game world. What do you think anyway? Did you get a PSVR 2? I've played on one, but I haven't personally got one myself. I've only got the original VR on PS4. But let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will see you in the next one.